Hello, my name is Dante Renee, and welcome to the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more. Like tonight's film, this is 1976's Schoolgirl Report Volume 10. This is Schoolgirl Report Volume 10. There are 13 total volumes, and you can check out the first 9 volumes already on this YouTube channel, and I'll be going all the way up to the 13th volume. But here is Volume 10 from 1976. The alternate title for this is Sexy Schoolwork, and you can actually see a screen grab of that on my Instagram account for 10 Room Bizarro. So here is Schoolgirl Report Volume 10, and we have some screenshots right here, and there's no nudity, but it, it's, close or whatever. And this is put out by Impulse Pictures under Synapse, and they put out all 13 Schoolgirl Report films. And these are, really one-of-a-kind types of experiences here. Now, the interesting thing is that Jess Franco, my favorite director, did a film called Virgin Report. And you can find, some similarities, some differences in the way that he did that film, almost in a way a version of these films. But these are German sexploitation films, softcore, yet very sexy, very erotic, and pretty explicit at times, depending on the volume for softcore. So this is Volume 10. Feel free to check out the first 9, and let's jump right into this. I have a bunch of notes here, so you're going to see my eyes divert at times, so let's just jump right into this. Now, Volume 10, just like the other volumes, has a wraparound story and a variety, of an anthology of sorts, of stories in the movie. Now, if you followed some of the other volumes up to this one, you will note that there was like a format change after the first couple Schoolgirl Report films, stylistically and also storyline-wise, and they started to become much more of the anthology format, as opposed to almost the mockumentary format in some form or fashion. So Volume 10 continues that anthology format, and the opening title sequence has that amazing music that is from the Schoolgirl Report theme right then and there, and you can actually get that song and some music from other Schoolgirl Report films, as well as some German sex films as well, on an out-of-print CD now. If you look up on Amazon, Schoolgirl Report CD, there is a CD out there that's out of print, but you can buy it used for relatively good price as of today's date, in May 2018. Now, the opening title sequence of this film is very interesting because I believe, as far as I can remember, it deviates from the other title sequences in the series so far, where it starts to freeze frame. It's the same title sequence for each one of the films, but in this one, it freeze frames some of the shots, interestingly. And I also noticed in the credits in the beginning, it mentions a youth director of sorts who is providing some knowledge in this film. Now, or at the end of the film. The interesting thing is that is almost one of those last pieces of the first couple films, looking at the mockumentary or the pseudo-documentary, or more of a documentary type vibe to these films. And we still have those pieces. We don't have the interviews on the street anymore, or things like that, but we still have those pieces. And this is a winter film. It's a cold film, meaning there's snow on the ground for the stories. And it's, we're not out at the pool. We're not in the, we're experiencing the cold winter, and in some cases, artistically beautiful winter. Now, we have a wraparound story in this film, dealing with a teacher in a class speaking to her students. and bringing about a discussion. And it's very interesting because it's very, very simplistic in the Wraparound story as opposed to some of the other films in the series. But the complexity comes out of the simplicity of this Wraparound story. Now, if you know these films at all, you know that you get great eroticism, great for people who have fetishes for schoolgirls and that whole vibe. But you also get these really weighty, complex concepts and philosophy and sociology, and in some cases, theology. So this is no exception. The teacher is in the class and she's speaking about two themes that are in the film that get mentioned again: legislations, government legislations, and morality. And the teacher starts to discuss stories, and we start to see those stories. And as I go into each one of these stories, I will not be giving away any, spoilers, so to speak, but I will be giving you themes. I'll be giving you elements of music and elements of style at times, and just pieces of what those stories entail, okay, without actually summarizing anything or, giving away anything. That's the way I always do everything. The first story deals with a teacher in a tutoring environment, and some interesting rules about teachers tutoring that I was not aware of. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it was just true in Germany. I don't know if it was just true in the 70s Germany or in the 70s in general. But teachers tutoring, maybe it was a no-brainer, but I just wasn't aware of some of these rules. And the connection of a mother involved in the tutoring and scenarios, and the mother and her daughter and a teacher. We have light jazz in this one with some orchestration and some 70s ballad slow work. And we have this amazing little stylistic scene of a bottle of alcohol disappearing. And it's done in a very stylistic fashion. I thought it was very interesting. We have some weird sound effects in this story, but we have weird sound effects throughout this whole volume 10. I have to say that I don't know if the other volumes had weird sound effects like this one does. And we have an English language lesson involving sex and nipples. There's an interesting thing here where we deal with gender and we deal with age as well. And I'm also going to say that the fourth wall gets shattered out of nowhere. And this is the way these films are. A lot of people don't think these films are anything but just nothing, just, nudity and sex. Not at all. Out of nowhere, the fourth wall gets shattered like a sucker punch. We also have some 70s psychedelic grooves and jams in here as well, involving some great psychedelic 70s guitar work. And we start to enter into themes, again, with the wraparound story of sexuality and legislation. Very interesting. The second story brings us into female masturbation, which gets repeated in another story as well in this volume. But masturbation in front of your mother, the connection between something being forbidden and sinful, pulling pubic hair, female sexual fantasy, which you don't see much, and a mirror reflection, self-discovery, a female using pornography in her fantasies and masturbation, virginity, the aspect of virginity, and an actual fear that men could have of taking a woman's virginity. That was something I never really saw before. We have some 50s sounding rockabilly in this story, jazz and funk light in here as well. We have a story aspect of impotence and manly strength. We have rape. We have suicidal tendencies. We have a beautiful, beautiful road shot in here in the winter, lined up with trees, as if you think of those, iconic shots of Los Angeles, of palm trees, lining up against the road. Just think of that in the winter, German, and just trees lining the road and a girl running down the street. It just looks awesome. And we also have the aspect of sex not just being physical, but also involving the mind, also involving the person, possibly love. In the third story, we almost break the wraparound story aspect. It almost shatters it. I mean, these films can do anything at any time, anywhere. And the third story seems to shatter the wraparound story. We have a pool party in here. We have an attraction to a stepmother. We have some great bass jazz in this particular story. An interesting stepmother deal with her stepdaughter and the stepdaughter's boyfriend. Very interesting stuff going on here. And I'm going to say there's the utilization of voices in the music in this story, but also throughout this film. It's predominantly in the first couple stories. Utilizing voices, almost in a way of like Brazilian jazz and things like that. And we have the aspect of an older woman, younger guy in this storyline. A very hot sex scene with the older woman in here. This is our first really super hot sex scene in the movie, is in this third story with the older woman. Great breast shots for the woman, great sexual positions, and an aspect in this storyline of the differences between older women and younger women. And we start to look in the wraparound story about the themes of morality and legality in relation to, kind of your private life. Something could be legal but immoral to someone. And what is that based on? So our private lives, which leads us, folks, to the fourth story, and I have to tell you, it is hands down the craziest Schoolgirl Report story so far that I've seen in 10 films. I still got, 3 more to go, but the craziest so far, and I would say probably the most openly entertaining to even the non-Schoolgirl Report crowd, if you catch my drift. And definitely linking in the horror crowd as well. The fourth story involves the Exorcist story, the Exorcist film. Very weird sound effects in this storyline. A strict mother, female fantasy masturbation again. What is your possession face? It's in here. An amazing slide in the snow, upskirt shot. Unbelievable comedy in this fourth story. There is horror, there is insane comedy, there's very sexy comedy, there's very sexy nude possession type shots of the main girl in this story. Just think of The Exorcist in the Schoolgirl Report world. Just think about that. We even involve Rasputin. Great characters, great side characters, especially like this one older guy. His faces, he just looks great. Like he looks like he came from some British TV show. He just looks awesome. And an extremely unique way to get sex. Some interesting connections between exorcism and sex, sexual desire. Very, very interesting things you might have never kind of made connections with before. Really, really love this girl in this story. I thought she was really sexually attractive, and just at first I didn't know what to make of her, and as the story goes on and as she's portraying her sexuality and her character and her outrageousness within this storyline, she just becomes more and more sexy. the possession quality of being horny. And really, really great electronic music in this storyline as well. It's outrageous, and I was laughing. I was absolutely entertained. I became possessed by it, by the definition in this storyline. You know, the possession of horniness. It was just awesome. Such an outrageous. I mean, absolutely hilarious. The nonverbals, the verbals, the expressions, the sexuality, the horror, the lights flickering, things that characters are saying, and hands down, by the way, folks, in this whole volume and in many of the Schoolgirl Report films, the things that people say, and it's all subtitles, by the way, so the things that you're reading are just outrageous sometimes. The things that people say in these films are outrageous and entertaining in their own right there, and maybe hot and sexy to you as well, if you're into that. Really, really outrageous dialogue in this story. The fifth story, we'll get back to the wraparound, and we start to look at gender differences and how gender differences kind of link to one's definition of morality. I thought that was very, very interesting. And we get to the fifth story, and the fifth story is really kind of the last story, and we have some 70s slow classic jazz in this story. We have an older man and a younger girl, and we have secrets and double lives, and the theme of academics versus actually getting a job. And could academics prevent you in getting a job? Are we just living in an academic culture? I thought that was very ahead of its time, actually, today, with everybody needing a master's to do anything. You know, older man providing for a younger girl. You know, that aspect of kind of getting off on that. And this amazing shot of a car window being rolled up and then seeing an office building, this wondrous office building structure on the window after it's rolled up. I thought that was a great shot, great reflection shot. We have a nephew and his uncle, and their involvement with a beautiful girl. Funk, jazz in here. And the office building in here reminded me of Jess Franco's, there's this structure in Lorna the Exorcist. For some reason, it just reminded me of that. And you can find that video on this YouTube page. The aspects of love and commitment and painful loss, getting your feelings involved, getting your body involved, and the feeling of loss, adultery, emotion versus logic. And the girl in this story as well is very sexually attractive. You know, if you like blondes, you're gonna love a lot of the girls in this film. Really, really beautiful girls as well. And this fifth story kind of enters into the wraparound story. And we start to look and start to close the movie on the themes of marriage, youth, academics, again, parents, career, and girls. How's a girl supposed to grow up? Is she just supposed to grow up and get married right out of her parents' house? Or is she supposed to go out and go to school, go to university, and get a career first? And we have, I believe, as I said in the opening credits of the film, the youth director speaking in narration form at the end of the film, where he starts to talk about the themes, or closes the movie on the themes of self-realization and the right to be young, and some really great shots on the streets of kind of a car driving, kind of zooming back from the front of that car. I thought there were some great cityscape shots, and a very, very interesting theme to close on, which a lot of the Schoolgirl Report themes, you know, look at, which is the right to be young. We were all once young. I mean, you might be young right now watching, but everyone was once young. And so the people that are pointing the fingers were once young as well. And you have this idea that, you know, well, now that I'm older, I know better. So I want to tell you about the mistakes I made. But I guess the question really is, are all those things actually mistakes? Or are those things rites of passage? Things you just do when you're young? This was Schoolgirl Report, Volume 10. Wouldn't the best parents, would you say, wouldn't the best parents be people who never forgot what it was like to be young? Schoolgirl Report Volume 10, right here, folks, from 1976. Awesome, awesome movie. Great in the series, and I have a couple more. Check out all the ones before it as well. Thank you so much for watching the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page, where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more, like the Schoolgirl Report films in Volume 10 right here. Please feel free to check out my own personal films at youtube.com/poopy, Poopy, diarrhea. Also, check out the 10 Room Bizarro Facebook page, where I do some live percussion performances to rare soundtracks like Jess Franco's soundtracks. And also check out the 10 Room Bizarro Instagram page, where I post pictures of movies and music that I feel need to be talked about more, as well as some other great things with music. Thank you so much, and good night.